Julie Ertz, U.S. Women's National Team legend, has announced her retirement from professional soccer. Won the World Cup in 2015, won it again in 2019, part of the team that won bronze at the Olympics in Tokyo. Then took some time away from the team, had a child, still managed to return in time to make the roster for the 2023 World Cup. She's a player who was, Herc, at the end of the day, impossible to replace for Vlatko Andonovski. Why do you think she was so hard to replace?
Well, her versatility, her leadership, could play as a defensive midfielder, could play as a center back, her ball-winning ability, the ability to circulate plays, et cetera, et cetera. I also think a lot of this falls on Vlatko. I think he tried to replace her. If you go back to the Tokyo Olympics, the opening game against Sweden, she wasn't on the field, Seb. They go on to lose that game 3-0. She didn't start the game, go on to lose 3-0, but she started every single game after that, including the bronze medal game that they won. So it was always by committee that Vlatko tried to, in some shape or form, fill that void. Lindsey Horan, Sam Coffey, Andy Sullivan, Emily Sonnet. It didn't matter who, it was always by committee. But it wasn't like she was missed, and I will say, in that position as a defensive midfielder in the World Cup, because Naomi Girma, and Julie Ertz, they were the best center back duo in the World Cup. They were very good defensively. But in removing Julie Ertz, you asked two players to do what she used to do by herself. And it was two players, one to try to win the ball, the other to try to circulate the ball, and it was at the expense of a creative player. Vlatko just could never introduce these players and give them a consistent run of minutes to have them feel comfortable in their own skin. Doing so much as taking players who had never been in major tournaments or major games to the World Cup. And that's why you saw that massive void at the World Cup.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said, too, on a macro level. Kind of the game changed, right? As we've seen in the last World Cup, the technical teams are coming to the fore. Spain won the last World Cup. And in 2015 and 2019, the women's game was still dominated by physicality, and Julie Ertz was dominant in those times. As the game changed, you couldn't just leave one person in that sixth spot, Herc, and hope that they would, against teams like Netherlands, against teams like Spain, against teams like Japan, can ping it around, that they would be able to do that job. So even Julie Ertz in her prime, I don't know if would have been as effective in a World Cup like this one as she was in 2015 and 2019. What I think is kind of sad is we see her at the end playing center back, a position she hadn't played in 4 years with the national team, and that's kind of the last image. It is worth remembering her in 2015 and 2019, where she was the best in the world and dominant both at center back and in defensive center midfield. There are very few players who can dominate international soccer in two positions. That is Julie Ertz's legacy. Maybe at the end it didn't look like it did at the beginning, but 2015 through 2019, you would be hard-pressed to find a player that was more important to the two-time World Cup champions than Julie Ertz.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.